On Monday, Iran's President Ahmadinejad spoke at Columbia University. Major television news has focused on the pro-Israeli demonstrators who, like Colombia's President Bollinger, called the Iranian president a dictator and much worse. There's been a furor of anger directed at Iran and its president, most of it focused on his comments that seem to question the reality of the Jewish Holocaust. But there has been very little serious examination on television of just what the president said. Joining us now from New Delhi is Aijaz Ahmad, who's a real news analyst and Senior Editorial Consultant and political commentator for the Indian newsmagazine Frontline. Aijaz, I'm going to play you a few of Bollinger's comments, a rather angry and aggressive introduction to a president.
Let's then be clear at the beginning. Mr. President, you exhibit all the signs of a petty and cruel dictator. When you come to a place like this makes you quite simply ridiculous. You are either brazenly provocative or astonishingly uneducated.
So Aijaz, the President Bollinger's comments were stark and sharp and somewhat surprising, but what did you make of the substance of it?
I think there are two sides to it, so far as the substance is concerned. One is that there are a number of things he says about internal repression inside Iran, which strike me as absolutely true. He is quite substantially correct about Ahmadinejad's continuing unease with the whole question of the Holocaust, whether it was real, whether it happened, and so on. Ahmadinejad has a lamentable position on all that. There's a second part of his fairly extensive second part of President Bollinger's comments, which have to do with Iran's so-called interference in Iraq and his position on nuclear weapons and so on and so forth, which just converged with American propaganda. So on substance, he's partly right, he's partly propagandistic.
Before you go in any further, why does the Iranian president continue to ride this question of the Holocaust? He continues to be ambiguous about it. Is it what he believes, or is there some tactic here?
That is very hard to tell. You see, he took this horrible position at one point where he was basically denying the reality of the Holocaust by trivializing the magnitude of it. And he held this terrible conference in Tehran on the question of the Holocaust, inviting all kinds of neo-Nazi sort of groups, which was lamentable. The world came down on him. A lot of his advisors, I'm sure, told him. A lot of Arab and Irani intellectuals, especially Arab intellectuals, wrote in very prominent media denouncing what Ahmadinejad was saying. So Ahmadinejad stepped back. Now he's saying, of course it was real, but it has to be researched, which I think still begs the real question. The second part of his argument, at which he dilates, about which he speaks very convincingly, I think, is, yes, it happened in Europe, but why should the Palestinians pay for it? However, about the scale of the Holocaust, his position is lamentable, and I think he has just cornered himself into a position that is unjustifiable.
What did you think of Bollinger making these kinds of comments?
Well, that is where two other questions come up. One is the whole issue of academic propriety. I have been a professor in American and Canadian universities for 30 years. I have never seen a host in a university step out of line, give up all kinds of propriety and courtesy and attack a guest in this manner. I can go on about that, but I was shocked by the lack of academic propriety. You simply say, I disagree with the things that you are doing and that you stand for. However, we have given you the courtesy of inviting you, and we wish to listen to you. And
it seemed that there was such controversy about even having made the invitation particularly from organizations that support Israel, that he seemed forced or pressured into taking such a stance. They've invited many other leaders to speak at the university. I know President Musharraf spoke there last year, and lots of people call Musharraf a dictator. He didn't merit such an introduction. It certainly has to do with the politics of New York, the politics of Iran and Israel right now.
That is where Ahmadinejad, I believe, had a point. He said, this reflects on the degree of freedom of speech we have in your institutions. You're absolutely right. There are all kinds of people. Musharraf actually is a dictator. Ahmadinejad, I don't like Ahmadinejad, but the fact of the matter is, no one doubts that these were free and fair elections. So he is an elected head of state, whether or not we like him. So that is very striking. The other thing, Paul, so many of liberal Americans, sophisticated Americans, don't understand how what they are doing is seen in the rest of the world, especially in the part of the world from where Ahmadinejad comes. Vast number of Iranis who are opposed to him would see this as an affront to their nation. You do not invite the head of a state and insult him in this manner.
There was actually a very similar situation last year. Hugo Chavez went to a church in Harlem and attacked Bush, and many people took a great affront, even opponents to Bush, saying you don't come into our country as a foreign leader and attack our leader. It's a somewhat parallel situation.
But you know, Columbia is an institution that Americans are quite rightly proud of. It's a great university. The president of that university must know the basic norms of etiquette, that this is not, this is not academic propriety. He should know that when he treats the head of his state in this manner, people outside the world are affronted by it, and what they see in it is an American arrogance towards a third world leader.